The next topic we're going to discuss is ammunition, specifically the company Seismic. And what makes this differ from most things that are out on the market is that this is a 9mm and 185 grain projectile. Just wanted to give you a little bit of perspective between these two rounds. I don't know why everything that is black has to be bigger, but there is a significant difference between this 185 grain and then this Spear Gold Dot, which is a 124. But it's noticeable, right? Size matters at a certain point. Now, what I find kind of fascinating is how do we get this projectile up to speed when we're only dealing with that much shell casing? There's not a lot of room, and you'll notice that the shell casing is even different. I mean, there's a hole that goes from the back red portion, but you can tell, those are kind of two different pieces merged together. And then of course that primer is going to start that ignition. The length is, and when I measured them, the length is the same as either Federal HST or Spear Gold Dot. So we're talking about something that's getting this bullet and sending it down range. And what at least Seismic has done wasn't overnight. It's taken a few years to accomplish this. And of course, now they have even other rounds, and I'm even more interested than this, possibly coming out on the market in certain phases. So let's start off. The powder that they use burns slower, okay? It's a lower peak chamber pressure, and it's a special powder that they're not gonna tell me what it is, but it is a special powder to be able to achieve what this round does. When this round does hit something, the expansion is 0.75. Now, let's look at this for a minute. When I talk about the expansion, that's basically based out of compacts or even PCCs. In the subcompact category, they're not seeing the same level of expansion, and in some cases, you might get over penetration. So something to know isn't that this is a gobstopper and one size fits all. This is a specific round. Obviously duty or carry is what people are gonna buy this round for. And it's predominantly to be shot out of compacts or larger. So let's talk about bullet speed. 920 feet per second out of a Glock 19. Out of a Glock 17, we're at 960. Out of an 8-inch PCC, you're running 1050. And if you're running a 16-inch 9mm carbine, you're looking at a speed of 1,100 feet per second. Now for me, just to give you an idea, I normally zero my red dots on my handguns and my PCCs at 25 yards, about an inch high. So when I loaded this up, I was just curious because I knew there had to be some type of bullet drop here happening between what I'm normally shooting and zeroed on, and then of course this 185 grainer. And what I noticed was it shot an inch low, which then put it right into the bullseye at 25 yards. So it was point of aim, point of impact in that case. Now, you could, or I could, if I definitely switch over to this round as a carry, I would zero it specifically, and I would just zero it and bump it up in elevation just a little bit. One of the things that I noticed was, at least to my ears, between my normal Ruog 124 and this round was slightly quieter. I wish I had a measuring device. I don't, but logically I know that out of a 8-inch Space Invader Noveski suppressed, that between the two rounds, this was a little bit quieter. And it makes sense because we're talking 1050. That's what they've chronoed it out of. One of the things that I'm gonna at least explain to you as best I can, first, anytime you're switching over to a round like this, this round is a little thumpier. When they described it to me, they said it was sort of like a fast 115. But I noticed a couple differences out of different styles of guns, because I sat there and I ran a lot of their ammo through some different platforms. The first thing that I noticed was my Gen 3 and my Gen 4 Glock 17s felt a little snappier than my Gen 5. And what I noticed was anything that has like an H&K, anything that has dual springs to compress, it's not as noticeable as when you have a single spring in the gun. Two, out of the PCCs, You definitely noticed it was a little thumpier. And what I would caution people on is anytime we start to screw, and this is with any type of ammunition, whether you're running a plus P, whether you're running a 124 or 147, or in this case, a 185, you may have to double check your buffer weights. So a little bit of a word of caution is double check your buffer weights and make sure that they function both suppressed and unsuppressed, and the bolt locks back to the rear, both slow fire and shooting fast as well. So I did notice a little bit more thumpiness, not enough to bother me because I do like shooting 230 grain 45. So it wasn't like shooting 230 ball. It wasn't really like shooting 185 grain 45 round. It was a little bit different. It was a lot less than shooting 185 grain out of a 45. It's noticeable, but not anything that that anybody would not want to carry. Now, where I saw it really shine is in the compensator world. I have ported guns, so like Glock 17s that are ported. And one of the things that I like about that is it doesn't reduce the recoil as good as comps on guns, except one, the slide speed is fast. Two, it's reliable. It'll eat anything that I throw at. 115 grain, 124 plus P, doesn't really matter. 147, shitty range ammo, but comps on some of these new guns that are out on the market, not all of them do that. One of the good indicators is, one, you'll kind of notice your slide speed slowing down. Two, the casings will almost dribble out of the gun. Okay, they won't get extracted in the manner that they normally do. So typically in most comp guns, I find, man, I got to sit there to get the full use out of the gun that I want to. I have to shoot something like a plus P round, like a 124 Federal HST. However, I enjoyed shooting these 185s. These 185s out of the comp guns were awesome. One, the speed of slide was not screwing around. Two, the extraction was kicking it like 5-6 feet out of the gun. So for me, this is definitely going in my comp guns. Anything that has a compensator on it, this I think this round really shined. We also know that because we have a lot more mass holding together, anything that you're dealing with in the realm of barriers, this round is performing really well. So from the gamut, to kind of sum everything up, is you have a 185 grain 9mm round. You have it pushing basically right at that 1,000 feet per second if we were to just kind of measure the broad spectrum of whether you're running a compact or whether you're running a PCC. Two, we have better maintaining its integrity when we're dealing with barriers. When we're dealing with comp guns, I think this thing is really shining. We have a 0.75 expansion, and we have a lot more energy being transferred downrange. For me, just give me a round that works, but if I can have an advantage over something, then I would. I think if you were to take this projectile and dedicate it to PCCs that are out on the market, and that was like your no shit PCC gun, man, 185 grain 9mm round is going to mess some people up. And I would much rather run that than a 124 if possible. I think for law enforcement, the only thing that you may have to do if you're just running a steady diet of these, if this was your duty and your training ammunition, which for some departments it would be, then you might just have to be switching springs out a little bit earlier than normal. But only time will tell for that. So with that in mind, many years ago, one of the things that I really liked was the HK chambered in 10mm. You're talking about primarily 180 grain 10mm round. So now to have something in a compact, in a PCC, meaning 185 grains, doing 1050 for CQB distances, I think this round is, I think time will tell, and I think this round's really going to shine. They do have some other rounds that I'm not at liberty to say that are coming out on the market here soon, and I think even those, when we start to look at what they did between the standard 9mm round and where they took it, and then think about that in a 45 or in a 5.56 round, I think we're in for something really cool. So nevertheless, this box of ammunition is $28 for 21 rounds. Is it the cheapest ammo out on the market? It's not, but it's also not the most expensive. Give me a round that works. That's what I need. And if this will aid me in that ability of stopping a threat, then I would rather have something that works and that can be devastating as well. So again, just something to think about.